The heat of Lagos clung to everything. Even in the late evening when the sun dipped behind the high-rises. Amara shifted on the thin mat inside her faded blue tent, her back aching from another night on the hard ground. The hum of traffic nearby never stopped. Neither did the voices of the street hawkers who still shouted over steaming pots of suya and roasted corn. She pulled her knees to her chest, staring out at the neon lights glowing across the city skyline. Somewhere beyond those towers, people were clinking glasses of champagne, sliding into chauffeured cars, and sleeping on soft Egyptian sheets. Yet here she was, barely surviving with a notebook of dreams that seemed more foolish each day. Amara had not always been like this. 2 years ago, she wore pressed suits and carried herself through office corridors with ambition. She had interned at Adewale Holdings, one of the most prestigious firms in Nigeria. People had whispered about the CEO Oba Adewale, the youngest billionaire in West Africa. A man as ruthless as he was brilliant. He had been her mentor for a short while, though he hardly remembered faces beneath him. Still, his words then had fueled her. You have fire. Don't waste it. But fire wasn't enough. Life had swallowed her whole. Her mother's illness drained her savings, her uncle's betrayal left her homeless. And when the company she worked for folded, there was nowhere left to go. One by one, her friends had disappeared too, unwilling to stand close to failure. Now, her world was this tent, pitched by the edge of a market, its nylon flaps rattling with the wind. She kept her notebook pressed to her chest, filled with business plans she had no capital to start. Maybe tomorrow she'd find work selling sachet water. Maybe tomorrow she'd be noticed by fate. A sudden beam of headlights cut through her thoughts. A sleek black car slowed to a stop in front of the tents. It was the kind of car that didn't belong here, with tinted windows and a purr too smooth for these rough roads. Amara froze, half hidden in the shadows. The back door opened. A man stepped out, tall, sharp suit. His presence alone seemed to silence the noise of the street. Her breath caught in her throat as the lamplight revealed his face. Oba Adewale. Her past, her mentor, her billionaire. And now, standing outside her tent. For a moment, Amara thought she was dreaming. Oba Adewale did not belong in a place like this. He belonged to glossy magazines and boardrooms with glass walls that kissed the sky, not the dusty roadside where tents sagged under humidity. Yet there he was, adjusting the cuff of his tailored suit, his eyes scanning the row of makeshift shelters until they landed on her. Her heart thudded violently. She wanted to shrink back, disappear, but it was too late. Recognition flickered across his face. Amara? His voice was calm, deep, commanding. The kind of voice that had once silenced entire conference halls. She swallowed hard, gripping the flap of her tent. Sir. Her voice was barely a whisper. He took a slow step toward her, the polished leather of his shoes far too pristine for the dusty ground. What are you doing here? His gaze swept over her wrinkled shirt, the worn slippers by the tent's entrance, the hollow tiredness in her eyes. Shame burned through her, hotter than the Lagos heat. She wanted to lie, to tell him she was simply passing through. But something in his gaze, sharp yet unexpectedly searching, made her exhale the truth. Living. The word hung between them, raw and fragile. Oba's brows furrowed, though his face remained mostly unreadable, the mask of a man who never let emotion slip. But she saw it just for a heartbeat, a flash of something that looked like anger? Pity? She couldn't tell. You were one of my brightest interns, he said slowly, as if speaking to himself. And now you're here. The humiliation cut deeper than any insult. Amara's throat tightened. Life doesn't ask for permission, Mr. Adewale. It just takes. For the first time his eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. Then just as quickly the steel returned. He pulled out his phone, typed something briskly, and snapped it shut. You can't stay here, he said firmly. Pack what you need. Amara blinked at him, confusion swirling. What? Why? I don't. A black-suited driver appeared from the car, already waiting for instructions. Oba didn't glance at him, his gaze still fixed on her. I'm not offering a discussion, Oba said, his tone final. You're leaving this tent tonight. Amara's breath caught. She stared at him, torn between gratitude, suspicion, and disbelief. Her old mentor had found her at rock bottom. But what did a man like Oba Adewale truly want in return? A black-suited driver appeared from the car, already waiting for instructions. Oba didn't glance at him, his gaze still fixed on her. "I'm not offering a discussion," Oba said, his tone final. "You're leaving this tent tonight." Amara's breath caught. She stared at him, torn between gratitude, suspicion, and disbelief. Her old mentor had found her at rock bottom. But what did a man like Oba Adewale truly want in return? The ride in Oba Adewale's car was silent, the hum of the engine softer than her own heartbeat. Amara sat stiffly in the back seat, clutching the small backpack that contained everything she owned. She felt out of place against the leather interior, the faint cologne of power and wealth clinging to the air. Oba didn't look at her. He typed on his phone with the same calm focus that once intimidated entire boardrooms. The city lights streaked past the tinted windows, Lagos alive with chaos outside, but in here it was another world, quiet, controlled, untouchable. Finally, he slipped his phone into his jacket and turned to her. His dark eyes studied her like she was a problem he intended to solve. "You shouldn't have been living there," he said flatly. "Not with your mind, not with your potential." Amara laughed bitterly, though it sounded more like a choke. "Potential doesn't pay rent, Mr. Adewale." He ignored the edge in her tone. "I'm giving you 4 million naira." Her head snapped toward him. "What? 4 million?" he repeated, as casually as if he were offering her a glass of water. "Enough to clear your debts, invest in yourself, and breathe again. You'll also move into an apartment on Victoria Island. Fully furnished, security, everything you need." She blinked at him, struggling to process. "Why? Why would you?" "Because I don't like waste," he interrupted, his voice sharp. "You are one of the brightest people I've come across. I don't invest in waste. Consider this, my investment." Her mouth went dry. 4 million. A luxury apartment. It sounded like the kind of miracle people prayed for in church. Yet miracles always had fine print. "And in return?" she asked quietly, suspicion lacing her voice. A shadow flickered across his face, almost a smile but colder. "In return you rebuild. You rise again. I don't believe in handouts, Amara. I believe in results." Amara sank back against the seat, her mind reeling. Money, shelter, a second chance offered by the man who had once been a distant star in her sky. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "Nothing from Oba Adewale comes without strings." The apartment tower on Victoria Island rose like a monument of glass and steel, shimmering against the Atlantic breeze. Amara stood at the entrance, her backpack slung over her shoulder, staring up at the impossible height. This was no place for someone like her. The driver guided her inside, and the elevator whisked her upward so smoothly she barely felt it move. When the doors opened, her jaw nearly dropped. The apartment was enormous. White marble floors gleamed beneath golden light. Walls of glass looked out over the ocean, and modern art hung in frames that probably cost more than she had ever earned in her life. A faint scent of jasmine lingered in the air, clean and expensive. "This is yours now," the driver said simply, handing her a set of sleek silver keys before retreating. Amara wandered inside like she was trespassing. Her fingertips brushed over the back of a velvet sofa, the cool granite of the kitchen counter, the silk of the curtains swaying gently in the breeze. A refrigerator hummed softly, stocked with food she hadn't dreamed of tasting in months. She opened the wardrobe in the bedroom. Dresses, shoes, and handbags lined the shelves, untouched and waiting. Her chest tightened. This was comfort, safety, luxury. But it felt like a costume she wasn't meant to wear. That night, as she curled up in the impossibly soft bed, Amara couldn't sleep. The sheets were smooth, the room quiet, yet her mind raced. Why had Oba given her all this? 4 million naira, an apartment with a view of the sea. What did he expect in return? Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "Be ready by tomorrow evening. You'll need something formal." Ah! Her stomach twisted. Of course. Nothing from him was free. The next morning, she found herself at a boutique, greeted by women with perfect nails and practiced smiles. "Mr. Adewale has already made arrangements," one of them said, leading her toward racks of gowns. As Amara tried on dress after dress, watching herself transform in the mirror, the truth hit her. She was no longer just Amara, the girl who once lived in a tent. She was stepping into Oba's world. And in this world, rules were different. The boutique's mirrors still haunted Amara as she sat across from Oba the next evening. He had brought her to a quiet rooftop lounge overlooking Lagos, the skyline glittering with restless energy. A string quartet played softly in the background, but Amara barely heard it. Her dress clung perfectly to her frame, her hair styled by hands more skilled than her own. Oba, as always, looked untouchable. His black suit was tailored within an inch of perfection, his cufflinks catching the faint glow of candlelight. He studied her with the same cool detachment he reserved for numbers on a spreadsheet. "You clean up well," he said simply, sipping from his glass. Amara forced a small smile, though her nerves pulsed beneath her calm exterior. "This isn't me," she admitted. "This dress, this place, it feels borrowed." "It is you," he countered, his voice clipped, decisive. "You just don't see it yet." Her fingers twisted against her lap. "Oba, why are you doing this?" "4 million. An apartment. Clothes. It doesn't make sense." His gaze didn't waver. "Because I need something from you." Her stomach tightened. There it was, the string attached. "In 2 weeks, Oba continued, Adewale Holdings is hosting an investors gala. Every eye in West Africa's business world will be on me. My rivals are circling, waiting for a weakness. They think I'm too cold, too unreachable, that I don't have roots." His jaw hardened. "I intend to prove them wrong." Amara's brow furrowed. "And where do I come in?" He leaned forward, the candlelight casting sharp shadows across his face. "You'll be on my arm. My fiancée." The word stole her breath. "Fiancée." "It's temporary," he said smoothly, as though it were a simple business deal. "Appearances matter. They'll see a softer side of me. A man with something to protect. You fit the role perfectly." Amara's pulse hammered in her ears. A fiancé? Pretending to be bound to a man like Oba Adewale, Nigeria's most powerful bachelor, was more than absurd. It was dangerous. "And if I say no?" she asked quietly. Oba's lips curved, not quite a smile, more a warning. "You won't. Because I just gave you the chance to start over. And because, Amara, you're too smart to waste it." Her heart clenched. She had escaped the tent, yes. But had she just stepped into a different kind of trap? The following days felt like stepping into someone else's life. Oba had her schedule arranged with military precision. Every morning, a car picked Amara up from her new apartment and whisked her into a whirlwind of lessons. She was coached on etiquette by a stern woman who corrected every fork, every bow of her head, every word that slipped too casually from her mouth. In the afternoons, a fashion consultant draped her in gowns, heels, and jewelry until her reflection no longer resembled the girl who once slept under torn nylon. "Smile less," the consultant instructed one day, tugging at her chin. "A billionaire's fiancée must radiate mystery, not desperation." In the evenings, Oba himself tested her. Over candlelit dinners in restaurants that overlooked the Lagos lagoon, he'd fire questions at her like a drill sergeant. "If an investor asks about our future together, what do you say?" "That you've found someone who makes you human," she replied nervously. His eyes narrowed, but a flicker of approval passed through them. "Better." It wasn't just lessons. Oba exposed her to a world she had never touched before. He took her to art galleries where canvases sold for the price of houses, to charity auctions where people raised millions with a lift of a hand, and once, on a private jet to Accra for a single dinner meeting. Each time, Amara tried to steady herself, but the weight of his gaze reminded her she was being measured. Yet in those rare moments when his guard slipped, she glimpsed a man behind the steel exterior. She saw it in the way his fingers lingered on an old scar on his wrist when he thought no one was watching, or in the pause before he answered questions about his family. And Amara, despite herself, began to feel something dangerous. Attraction. Late one night, after another exhausting lesson, she sank into the penthouse bed. Her phone buzzed with a message. "You did well today." "Ah." She stared at it for a long time, her heart thudding. It was the first compliment he had given her. And for reasons she couldn't explain, it mattered more than it should have. Amara closed her eyes, realizing with a jolt. She wasn't just being trained. She was being pulled deeper into his world. And maybe into his orbit. The Adewale Holdings Gala was the kind of event Amara had only ever seen on television. The hall glittered with chandeliers that rained golden light. The marble floors polished until they reflected gowns and tuxedos like mirrors. Lagos elite moved through the room with glasses of champagne in hand, business tycoons, politicians, foreign investors, all eyes sharp, all smiles rehearsed. And at the center of it all, Oba Adewale. He stood tall in a midnight black tuxedo, every inch the king of this kingdom. Beside him, Amara's arm hooked through his, her emerald gown trailing like liquid light. Diamonds sparkled at her ears, borrowed from Oba's vault, and for the first time in her life, the cameras turned toward her. Smile. Oba murmured at her ear, his hand firm on the small of her back. But only a little. Mystery, remember? Her lips curved faintly, just enough. She felt her knees trembling beneath the gown, but she forced herself to walk in rhythm with him. They moved as one, and the room turned to watch. Whispers followed. Who is she? The new fiancée? From nowhere, suddenly everywhere. At their table, investors leaned forward eagerly, speaking to Oba with new warmth. His calculated risk was working. Amara could see it. His enemies couldn't call him cold now, not with a woman by his side, her hand resting delicately on his. But not everyone was convinced. Halfway through the evening, as Amara excused herself to step toward the balcony, a man intercepted her. He was tall, with a sly smile and eyes too sharp to be kind. So you're the miracle woman, he drawled. Oba's fiancée, plucked from thin air. Amara stiffened. Excuse me? He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You don't belong here. I know women like you, pretty faces used as shields. When the game is over, men like Oba discard them. Enjoy it while it lasts. Before she could respond, Oba appeared at her side. His hand slid possessively over hers, his jaw tight. Is there a problem here? The man smirked but backed away with a mocking bow. Not at all, Adewale. Just welcoming your choice. As he left, Amara felt Oba's grip tighten. For the first time, she saw something raw flash in his eyes, not just anger, but protectiveness. And she realized, in this world, appearances weren't just for show. They were weapons. The gala ended, but the questions it stirred in Amara's chest refused to fade. She couldn't shake the man's words on the balcony, nor the way Oba's grip had tightened, as if daring anyone to challenge her place beside him. That night, back at the apartment, Amara finally confronted him. He stood by the window, Lagos glittering like scattered diamonds below, his broad shoulders rigid against the skyline. Why me? She asked quietly. Out of everyone you could have chosen. Why drag me from a tent and put me in this world? Why pretend I'm your fiancé? For a long time, silence pressed heavy between them. Then Oba exhaled, slow and deliberate, as though he had been carrying the truth for too long. Your father, he said at last. His voice was lower than she'd ever heard it. Years ago, I was just starting. I was ambitious, reckless. One night, I made enemies, dangerous ones. I should have died that night. But your father stepped in. He saved me, at the cost of his own health. Amara's breath caught. My father? Oba nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He never told you. He didn't want you to know. But I owe him my life. When I saw you in that tent, Amara, it wasn't charity. It was debt. And maybe, his voice faltered for the first time, his mask cracking. Maybe more than debt. Her chest tightened. More. He turned then, his dark eyes burning with an intensity that made her pulse stumble. I've built empires. Broken rivals. But when I saw you again, I realized I hadn't been able to forget you. The intern with fire in her eyes. You remind me of everything I buried to survive this world. The silence stretched, heavy charged. Amara's heart hammered. This man, the billionaire, the mentor, the mystery, had carried her father's sacrifice in his chest all these years. And somewhere in the cracks of debt and duty, something else had bloomed. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but steady. Then stop hiding behind investments and masks, Oba. If this is more than debt, then say it. His jaw clenched, but his hand reached for hers, warm and firm. Amara, I don't want to own you. I want you beside me. Not for show. Not for a gala. But because... His words broke into a whisper. Because it's you. For the first time since her world had collapsed, Amara felt steady. Not because of the money. Not because of the apartment. But because in his eyes, she wasn't a project. She was everything. And as Lagos lights glittered beneath them, Amara knew she had stepped out of the tent forever into a future she would choose. And into the arms of the man who had finally chosen her. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share, and see you in the next video.